Okay, so I did my final exam for humanities on the field of engineering and specifically mechanical engineering. And for the title, I like what I put for my title: Engineering is a superpower anybody can learn, which I believe is true because it's something that can be taught through learning and lessons and also just practicing it. And it can do a lot of things with technology when given the right tools. I described mechanical engineering as diverse, innovative, and impacting, since engineering is a field that in recent years has become very crucial to the advancement of society, especially in terms of resources and technology specifically, such as this quote says by Andrew Rosenblum. This year's top engineering innovations reflect a growing awareness that crucial industries like construction and shipping can no longer conduct business as usual. These honorees answer some of the burning questions about the future of a burning planet, including how to address tough to decarbonize realms like food and energy production. And what this quote shows is just how crucial mechanical engineering is to on a global scale, and you can even see it in the bottom right picture of mine. All the different areas it affects. It affects the medical field, underprivileged areas such as third world countries, medical field, food industry, car industry. It affects some. It has some foot in almost every type of category. And for my thesis, I have exploring the six categories in the field of engineering shows how crucial improvements regarding technology and work propel society to be a more advanced, self-sufficient community. Looking into specifically the impact of glass, glass is a very crucial resource in the engineering world, and its primary uses are with reinforcements and insulation and construction. And normally we usually think of glass as being on our windows, and that's about it. But it also has a lot of forms, such as prescription glasses or safety glasses, which what I have to wear a lot of times. Magnifying glasses and safety tools are very, very, very important to engineers, since even such when with a magnifying glass, even small details need to be looked into, such as with circuit boards and whatever other very minute pieces of technology. And safety glasses are important simply because when working with a lot of tools and a lot of resources, it can be dangerous, especially around the eyes, which are a very sensitive organ of the body. And even in recent years, a lot of bulletproofing and soundproofing of glass has been made, which makes everything a bit safer and a more calmer environment, especially in workplaces and soundproofing, such as in schools, where soundproof glass can essentially create an environment where students and teachers don't have to worry about their sound levels and disturbing other classes, and bulletproof glass in more dangerous areas, such as for combat or in vehicles that are in areas or are in situations where that would be needed. And for my article and source that I used what are recent advancements in glass materials technology, and it goes over just generally advances of technology in the year 2019, I believe, and the ones that Kelly, the author, specifically goes over are wavelength selectors, levitation technology, metallic properties given to glass to make it more resistant, such as blast resistance, elasticity, and electrical conductivity. And I thought the source was pretty good because it gave a lot of detailed information about a versatile set of pieces of technology that still revolve around glass, but they all have different functions, which makes them very versatile and shows how important glass can be, even if it seems like a common everyday resource. And the impact of glass is also extremely important, but I wrote that it was a lot more important in storing objects and creating artificial environments. With mechanical engineering, a big portion of it is HVAC, which stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And almost all housing, vehicles, and any facility has air conditioning or heating, because if it didn't, it would definitely be a lot more difficult to live and work in these environments. Although it isn't impossible, it makes the quality of life so much better than having to sleep in your house with nothing but a blanket in 30-degree weather. And another purpose I saw of it is in technology such as fridges and freezers, since it's able to store food for an extremely long amount of time, and even going as far to storing bodies in the medical field, which kind of diverts off of my original point. However, engineers have to ensure that those are built up to par and that they function properly for hospital workers and medical workers to function with them. And it creates very stable environments that people are able to work in comfortably. And the article I used was A New Way to Provide Cooling Without Power by David L. Chandler. He is an MIT. He works for MIT News, and he was able to identify with a team of engineers about using solar technology in order to power cooling devices in smaller rooms. And I thought the article was very good as well, since MIT is a very prestigious university, and the author has written several other engineering-related articles regarding this. And this also ends up being a cleaner source of energy since it's off the grid. And as the quote says, the passive system, which could be used to supplement other cooling systems to preserve food and medication in hot off the grid locations, is essentially a high tech version of a parasol. And this shows that even in underprivileged areas such as third world countries, it can still be used since it's only feeding off of the sun in order to cool these areas. For the impact of sound, I decided to talk more about the acoustics and health of workers, specifically in the hearing ability of workers. And in the image here, I have a construction worker wearing protective headphones while using power tools. And a lot of times when construction zones are happening, it's very easy for civilians like us to just be annoyed at the noise of bulldozers, jackhammers, concrete machines, all of that. But when you really think about it, those construction workers and other engineers there have to sit right next to those machineries for hours at a time, which can become a problem, especially if there is no hearing protection. And a lot of times, the sense of hearing declines a lot in engineers who work with these types of technologies. Additionally, it also helps a lot with communication, such as with walkie talkies or intercom systems, and without them, it would be very difficult to have to go back and forth walking and physically being present with the other person in order to communicate. But with these wireless communications, we're able to quickly relay information and keep things running smoothly. And as I mentioned, a lot of nerve damage can happen with the vibrations the sound causes in one's ears. And the source I use to demonstrate this is Looking Toward the Future of Acoustical Engineering by the Revolutionize team. And although it says acoustical engineering, it still relates to mechanical engineering, since because of the versatility of mechanical engineering, knowing how to make these types of headphones and speakers and any kind of microphone at some point deals with a mechanical engineer in order to understand the flow of how the sound works and impacts with the technology being used and the mechanics of it. And I thought this article was very good since it offers a variety of information regarding different areas of audio engineering and discussing how each of them works, while also additionally providing basic audio engineering research so it doesn't get too complicated and I was able to understand it thoroughly. Going on to the impact of clean, a lot of the working environments that engineers and construction workers and anybody involved, excuse me, a lot of these areas are very dangerous to work in, but they can also get extremely messy and dirty. When you look at construction zones specifically, you see a lot of rubble, you see a lot of dirt, and when you think about them, you think of their clothes being dirty and their face having a lot of dirt all over them, which can be a problem, especially if there's no protection over the mouth, because people could get sick. And a specific example I use is actually from the textbook. Um, in order for the microchips to need to be constructed in the clean chapter of the book, the environment needed to be very pristine and clean but not too clean. It needed to be a very specific environment and controlled, so it didn't harm the microchips, which makes it very similar to cold technology, but clean deals more with bacterial growth and making sure things are clean. And I also mentioned that clean in general also deals with keep using cleaner resources and energy to benefit the earth and not use as much fossil fuels and CO2 emissions. On the image above, you can see that I have a machine removing rust and corrosive material, and using that allows you to recycle the metal and use it for later while cleaning it and making sure that you can't get sick from it, such as tetanus, even though most people have tetanus shots. The article I used was Turning Concrete into a Clean Energy Source by Herb Booth, which details how Maria Consta-Dutis, a civil engineer, was able to decarbonize concrete and turn it into a renewable energy generator, which reduces carbon emissions and is overall a cleaner resource to use for the environment. And I thought it was very good since it came from the University of Texas at Austin, which is a very trusted university that comes from the civil engineer in charge herself, Maria Consta. So I thought it was a good article overall. Going on to the impact of time, although in the realm of actual engineering it doesn't use time, when talking about the workplace of a mechanical engineer, time is very important since deadlines need to be met and certain scheduling needs to be done. And as I say here, materials also have deadlines of when they can be used, when they can't be used. So it's very important to use things and do things in a timely manner, but not in a way to do everything all at once very quickly, in a paced manner as to not have extensive work periods or to stress out resources and people themselves into working themselves into a corner and eventually falling apart. The article I use specifically here is Why Time Tracking is Important for Your Engineering Firm by Carl Rose, which goes over the benefits of time tracking and keeping schedules of everything and making sure everything is accounted for as to not redo somebody's job, forget a job, and to keep these running as smoothly as possible. And the article is very informative, using solid tips and giving information that proves that time tracking is a very valuable thing in the workforce, and specifically for mechanical engineers. With the impact of light, light is very important in visibility and sensory technology. As you can see in the image, workers are using headlamps to work in dim conditions. Light, with those headlamps, it's very much more tool of convenience because working in very dark conditions can be extremely difficult when all you can do is feel around and not necessarily use your eyes. And it can also be very dangerous when you can't see things around you, especially when there are things present such as tools like saws and other tools that can be very dangerous. Additionally, with sensors and switches, those are also more of cutting time and making things more efficient. When you think of a light switch, before years ago, like hundreds of years ago, people would need to use candles or use very time-consuming ways of light. But now, when we enter a room, all we need to do is flip a switch, or sometimes not even that. Sometimes lights come on by themselves when a person is present with sensor technology. The article I used was Advancements in the Lighting Technology, and this was denoting technology that was created at the start of 2021, and a lot of it goes into how UV lights can be efficient and how it can improve LED lights. And the article was also very good, but not as good as the previous ones I've used, since the author did lack some credibility, but overall the information was solid and backed up by good information. With my conclusion, exploring the 6 technologies in the field of engineering shows how crucial improvements regarding technology and work propel society to be a more advanced/efficient community because of how technology aids people. That's the main purpose of technology, is aiding people and pushing human limits beyond their boundaries. Using the technology created by engineers makes life easier and more accessible since it allows for less effort when completing tasks that would be difficult to do by hand. And for the 3 tasks or problems that I saw that could be explored upon, The first one I have is resource gathering with minimum greenhouse contribution. It's a well-known fact that a lot of technology, such as our cars and a lot of factories, emit CO2 gas and lots of other greenhouse gases that are very harmful for the environment. And in recent years, there's been an increase in greener technology such as biomass, solar panels, hydroelectric dams that are very beneficial for the environment and don't cause as much stress on the earth as these fossil fuels do. So I think it'd be very beneficial to switch more into solar power and hydropower and biomass, since I believe those three would be the most easy to utilize, since other technologies such as wind is very dependent on your location, and geothermal as well is very dependent on your location. For the second problem, I have accessibility to technology. Certain communities and third world countries do not have the same commodities that people like us in America have. Even though in some parts of America people still do not have certain commodities such as heating and air conditioning or the use of a laptop such as what I'm on now. I specifically mentioned the regulated temperatures because I've been in many areas and homes where heating and air conditioning aren't necessarily functional there, and it's very difficult to live in them, especially during the harsh seasons of summer and winter. In the fall and spring, it isn't as bad since temperatures are mild, but once it gets down to like 30 degrees or almost to 100 degrees in the summer, it can be very difficult. And allowing for more accessibility to those types of technologies would be very beneficial. With light and electricity, I think it's also a necessity because of how much of technology now requires so much electricity, such as stoves, heating and air conditioning, light in general, and fridges in order to keep food good. Although electricity seems like it's something that people could live without, in this day and age and with a lot of resources with food, it's virtually almost impossible to do. Although it is possible, it would just be very inconvenient and would limit the survival chance of a lot of people. The third task I have is providing better communications and create work areas that emit less noise pollution. As I mentioned earlier in the impact of sound technology, noise pollution, although it isn't something that's thought about a lot, it can be very detrimental since sound itself can be very disorienting for people working near it and people around the area. Going back to the construction worker um, example, when people are driving near one, people are already entranced by the visuals of people using big machines and they want to know what's going on with it. But on top of that, when those machines are used, loud sounds are being put on top of the machines and the cars that the people are in. So when crucial directions are giving, like when to stop or when to slow down, it's very difficult for people to process it. And it's why a lot of times people are designated to hold signs to say stop or to slow down near these places. So creating areas where people are able to communicate a lot more effectively while not producing as much sound to while not producing as much sound in order to keep people, the workers and civilians safe, I think would be very beneficial. This is my works cited, and here is the honor pledge.